am going to make some sourdough chocolate chip scones. I'm gonna take you guys along for the ride. This recipe is from littlespoonfarm.com and it is absolutely amazing. The app that I'm using is called Paprika. It's on the App Store, not sponsored, but I absolutely love this thing. You can import recipes from anywhere on the internet. You just need the link and then you come to the app, put the link in, and then it automatically populates the ingredients for you as well as the directions with any special notes. You can categorize them by what kind of recipe it is. Like I have a category just for sourdough and sourdough discard, and then I have like all my holiday recipes and all that stuff. Amazing. So 10 out of 10, highly recommend. We're gonna focus on the chocolate chip scone recipe today. And what I really like about this is that I can use my sourdough starter discard. So if you noticed, I save all of my discard in what used to be my original jar for my sourdough discard, but then I got the other container. So I keep my sourdough starter in a jar and then I put a airtight lid on it and put it in the fridge until I'm ready to use it. I like to use a bunch of it in my sourdough biscuit recipe, not mine, but the one that I use all the time. I have that in this app as well. And it calls for an entire cup of cold unfed sourdough starter, and that's why I love that recipe so much. Not only are the biscuits really yummy, but I can use a whole cup of discard straight from the fridge. So that is a staple in my sourdough recipes. Today we are going for the chocolate chip scones. Now the sourdough starter discard, it calls for a ½ cup in this recipe, and I usually just use it straight out of my sourdough discard stash. I'm trying to get this down to 0 so that I don't have any in the fridge, because if I run out of discard, I can always use it straight from the starter itself. Enough rambling, let's get on to the scones. You're going to need 2 bowls, one for wet and one for dry. And you can get this recipe for free at littlespoonfarm.com. I'll leave the link to the exact recipe and to the app below in the description box. The dry ingredients are 2 cups of all-purpose plus 2 teaspoons. Do I notice much of a difference when I add the 2 teaspoons versus not? I don't know, because I always add it because that's what the recipe says to do. And it is laundry day and my husband is sleeping right now because he works night shift tonight. So that's why pajama attire, but who am I kidding? Every day is pajama day. All right, 2 cups. And this is a ½ cup I have here. We're going to spoon it and then level it. 1, 2, or 1½ 2, plus 2 teaspoons. ½ cup of granulated sugar, and a little slim, so I'm gonna add a little bit more. Okay. And yeah, usually like for a cookie or something, you cream the sugar with the other stuff, but this one goes straight into the flour. We also need a ½ teaspoon of sea salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, which I am almost out of. And then 1 stick of frozen or very cold butter, but I use frozen. I'll show you why. All right, so we're going to whisk the dry ingredients together just to get them all incorporated. There we go. Now, frozen solid butter, because you're going to be grating it into your flour mixture. So take the wrapper off. I used to try and leave the wrapper on so that there was a barrier between the butter and my fingers, but I don't do that anymore because it was bothering me. So what I do, I roll the butter in the flour so I can get a better grip on it before it starts melting in my hands. And then we grate. Get all the rest of the butter out of here. All right, then we're going to incorporate that butter into the flour. We're gonna add some chocolate chips. It calls for a cup, but I say measure with your heart. I'm not a huge chocolatey person. I do like the chocolate chips, they're good, but this is mostly for my husband and my son.
Eat chocolate chips.
Oh, you want some chocolate chips?
Yeah. Lots of chocolate chips on the table.
Go. You can always add more at the end and put them kind of like, shove them on the top if you want. All right, so now that we've got that mixture going, set that aside. We're gonna work on our wet mixture. For the wet ingredients, we're gonna do a ½ cup of our discard.
Yummy chocolate chips.
Oh, I'm so glad you like them.
Yes.
Yes.
So tasty chocolate chips.
So tasty. All right, next up, we need a large egg, vanilla, and heavy cream. So it calls for 1 large egg, 2 teaspoons of vanilla. There's like barely anything left in there. We're just gonna use it all up. And 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. And we're going to whisk that together until incorporated. All right, so now we're going to pour our wet mixture into our dry and then use a fork to incorporate. The recipe does say that it's gonna seem really dry, but do not add any more liquid. Those are the rules. I usually go until most of it looks pretty damp and there's very little residual flour left. So about looks like that. On a clean work surface, dump it on out. And then you're gonna bring it together. So you literally just press it all together. And then we're looking for about an 8-inch disc. Now what we do is I've got this little half sheet pan, which is perfect. It's like a jelly roll pan. Some parchment paper on the bottom. And then with a bench scraper or a big knife or something, we're going to cut this into 8 equal pieces. All right, those are going to go into the fridge to chill for 30 minutes. And then once they're done chilling, preheat your oven. Once the oven is ready, then take them out, and then we'll do the next steps. We're going to be switching gears into making the sourdough biscuits that I referenced earlier. You can find the recipe with all of the measurements and directions in the description box below. As I said, this is one of my favorite sourdough discard recipes because it does use, I think, a full cup of discard. This really helps me to keep my discard stash low, and it's the perfect side to go with all of the dinners that I make. So this one is pretty simple and it comes together really fast. What I really like is seeing the time lapse you'll see here of how it grows. It does need to be set aside for about 15 minutes or so before you actually shape them into biscuits. So I'm going to cover them with a towel and set them aside until I'm ready. Once they are ready to go, you just gently dust your surface with some flour and then roll them out and cut your biscuits. This was done over a year ago, and I do things a little different now. I usually laminate my dough by folding it over itself after I've rolled it out to get those nice flakes. I also don't roll it out as thin so that my biscuits are taller, and I also brush the top with either some sort of egg wash with water or milk, or I just brush them with some heavy cream or melted butter before I bake them, just to kind of give them that golden color. I take all of my scraps and I roll them together to cut as many biscuits as I can out. And once I've cut everything I can, I usually take the very, very last bits of scraps and I just form them into a biscuit. So just pat them down until they look biscuit shape and you should be good to go. This recipe usually gets me 8 biscuits, and that is plenty for us with some leftover. And now it's time to start my sourdough boule. So this was back when I was still very, very fresh and very, very new to sourdough. And if you are a seasoned sourdough baker, number one, thank you for watching. I don't know why you are, but thank you. And number two, we all learn by doing, and there was definitely a lot of learning in this process. I know from just watching this about a year or so later that my dough is way too stiff. It has not enough hydration in it, and I am definitely not shaping it properly, but that's okay. This was, I think, my second, maybe my third sourdough boule that I had attempted since I started my sourdough journey. And I was pleasantly surprised with how this one turned out. As you'll see soon, I will show you the crumb shot and cutting it open. I did not score it. I don't remember scoring it, so I think it just kind of split on its own where it felt like. And it was a nice crunchy flaky crust, and the bread was delicious despite it not being cooked probably properly. But here's the crumb shot. I'm really proud of it, and I'm so excited to see how far I've come, and I'm so glad that I've been able to document this journey. So thank you so much for watching with me.